Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm your host, Saucy McFoodlefist, and today we are playing The Letter. In the last one, we went to a bar, and at the end of the episode, we found out that something bad might have happened to Zach. So let's just get right into it, shall we? Driving off with my body on autopilot, mind in a daze and afraid, utterly afraid, that I have lost someone in my life again. The whole precinct is in uproar. Officers move in and out from the main work hall with rapid steps, phones blare loudly from the common rooms, and calls are being made from the dispatch area. The rest, who has been left standing, watch the whole commotion with a nervous energy. From further back, the chief's voice booms above the uproar. I'm not even shocked. He may appear like a bumbling fool on first glance, but he has kept the city safe for years. For something to happen in his jurisdiction, inside his own precinct, right under his nose, he has the right to be royally pissed.
What do you mean you don't know? Don't give me that shite, Sergeant! How can one person, slip past you? You can't even keep an eye on one man!
His statement gives me pause. Am I wrong? Did Zach escape somehow? I'm not condoning it. Neither do I believe Zachary is capable of doing, let alone thinking of it. But if it's what happened, I'll be equally as cross as the chief. This won't help his case. This will only complicate things with Wright and put the both of us in a tight spot. I won't be able to help him once the red tape prevents me from doing so. Yet a hint of relief still washes over me as I walk closer to my boss, mentally preparing myself for whatever reprimand he's about to dish out.
What's happening, Chief?
Except he merely glances at me with an inscrutable expression. Although, if I'm going to read deeper into it, I'll say it's the closest expression he can get to shooting me a pitying look. For the first time in my years on the force, I find myself wishing to hear a reprimand from him. Whatever that stare means, it can't be good. Coupled with Officer Rentz's tone this morning, it does nothing to calm the uneasy feeling in me. Fuck, boss even seems relieved to see me. After the last few exchanges we've had in the past 2 weeks, you'll think the man doesn't want to see me right now.
About time you got in here.
I got caught up in something. Sorry, Chief. What's going on? Is there a problem with Zach?
He hesitates for a second, before his frown eases with a long, dragged-out exhale.
I'm not sure if you can call this a problem, Frey, but I'll let you be the judge of that. Follow me. And you, I want your full report about this by the end of the day. It better be good or you are kissing that badge goodbye.
The officer he's addressing, the sergeant, a man in his late 20s to 30s, who transferred here last year, shrinks back in his chair. I don't quite remember his name. I've only seen him quite a few times since I've been out of the precinct. Since I'm often out of the precinct. But if my memory serves me right, he's the guy currently assigned to the late night shift, at least until this month ends. Depending on how bad this is, he'll either be given a verbal warning, a suspension, or a dismissal. It's not a position I envy from being in right now. Although there's really not much time left to feel sorry for him either. As soon as Chief's done roasting the other officers behind the guy, he gestures for me to follow. Straight towards the precinct's holding cells. And if it's a switch that's been turned off, the moment he steps away from the small crowd, the entire main lobby goes silent. For one reason or another, it feels like everyone's simply waiting for the metaphorical hammer to fall. Even in their stares, before we turn to the adjacent hallway, exude the same pitying vibe as the Chief's. All of which I might have easily ignored any other day. People here can be a bunch of gossip mongers. It's the only significant glance the Chief throws my way before pushing the door open that stops me. Not that there's even a need to mull over it, because the moment he swings it open, it strikes me. A sharp, dry, metallic scent. I've already grown familiar with it over the years. It's one of those things you have to get used to once they start handing you homicide cases. Now, just a whiff of it tells enough for me to gauge the severity of the situation. This isn't the festering smell you get when someone in the room has a fresh wound. It lingers far too much in the air, hangs far too heavily, even where I stand. No. This is what you get when someone has spilled blood all over the room. This is what you get when there's a large pool of it. This is what you get when no one bothers with the cleanup for a few hours because forensic work isn't done yet. This is what you get when there's most certainly a dead body somewhere. I don't want to think of the who yet. There are simply too many possibilities, too many variables unaccounted for here to form a single conclusion. However, when the chief of Luxborn Police refuses to provide answers, a chill easily fills every nerve in my body. Almost in a trance, I follow him without asking anything or saying another word. For the first time in years, I feel like a damn rookie again. Fresh out of training, newly instated, and still on the first homicide case. Except I didn't balk at the idea of seeing a dead body then. Now, as the light flashes fleeting from the far end of the hall, while CSI documents the scene and the forensics team gather evidence, the only thing my instinct tells me is to run. As far from here as possible, as if I don't have 10 years of detective work under my belt. It echoes inside my head like a mantra.
It's because you didn't listen.
It's all your fault. Why won't you believe me?
Over and over and over, rising and ebbing, a tidal wave of thoughts and murmurs surging and crashing against my ear. More deafening than the drum of my heartbeats and shallow gasps. Churning and heaving till the cell finally comes into view and when I am afforded a clearer look of what's inside. The whole world stands still. Zach, are you okay? Zach, are you okay, Zach? In one single moment, every noise, every smell, every person in the room all ceases to matter the second my eyes land on his prone form. There's only red, 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 blood everywhere on the floor where a copious amount of blood has been pooled, on the walls, smeared on every crack and tile his hands can reach, on his face and shoulders, dripping from every gash and tear, flowing from the hollow gap where his eyes should have been.
The custodial officer found him when they brought in breakfast. It was too late. He was already dead by that time. Some 3 to 4 hours, according to the blokes from forensics.
There had been a struggle, based alone on the smear pattern left on the bars and floor, but only so much as the small cell will allow him. I can already imagine how it went down. He was likely left with no other choice, cornered like an animal at the mercy of his killer. In the cell, there would have been no escape. The only thing he would have been able to do is shout for help. Perhaps the same plea written on the floor closest to him, like the one I've seen in Isabella's room that night. Help me. Help me. Help me. Help that he didn't even get. And it calls for a whole lot of questions. Not the hows. Logic has already flown out the window from the start. She has left the means to get to us, get to all of us, bars and walls notwithstanding. The why, though.
No one? No one heard him? Not even one from the guys on duty last night?
Because Zach's not an idiot, he would have asked for help. He would have yelled.
Oh, one of them did, but thought nothing of it.
Then why didn't they do anything? He's just a room away!
They must have assumed your friend's just asking for attention. Henry wasn't clear on the details when I questioned him about it. You've been serving in this precinct for more than a decade, though. You should be aware by now how rowdy the folks we detain here can become. But that's not the only problem we have here. Someone got in and out of this place without anyone noticing. Even the surveillance footage is a bust. Tech's going over it now, but I don't think we'll get anything from it. The media will have a field day when they learn of this fray. Keep it mum for now. I'll let you know because he's your... well, you deserve to know. The poor bloke's your friend, after all. I just don't want the commissioner hearing of this before I can tell him anything. Or at least, until we've figured out how the butcher got in.
You think this is an inside job?
What else can it be? It's either that or we have a damn good criminal mastermind walking this city.
Really? I want to say something. I want to tell him that this isn't what he's thinking. That all this time, the Anselm Butcher never existed. This is a curse the people of the city have been lapping up for centuries. The way things are going, we'll simply find ourselves at a dead end. Chances are, they'll just have to find an innocent chap to blame for everything, like with Wright did with Zach, like with what Wright did with Zach. A scapegoat for things they can't explain. But how am I supposed to tell anyone, let alone get them to believe my words? I'll sound like an idiot. They'll likely brush me off the way I've done with some of Isabella's warnings. In the end, clenching my fists at my sides and gritting my teeth is all I am able to do. Zach's lifeless face stares back at me, an accusation in them, sharp and searing. An expression that etches itself deep within my mind once the first officer waves us both out of the room. Another ghastly image I will never be able to forget. Just like Isabella's mangled body in her room. Another memory I will probably haunt me until my last dying breath. Another regret. Chief dismisses me barely an hour later, sending me off with nothing but a light pat and another sorry expression. I'm not entirely sure if that's supposed to be reassuring. There's plenty more to do, a lot of people to call and tell, and all this falls on me. No matter how awful the news I bring will be, it'll be better if it comes from a person his family and friends know. Still, my body refuses any notion of movement. The thought of telling Rebecca about this, it will upset her. I don't even want to imagine what his grandparents will say. They're good, kind, warm-hearted people who has given me another family even without me asking for it. They welcomed me, invited me every time, easily reminded me of what having a whole home feels like. I thought I've already forgotten it. Zach's older sister will definitely show up in my apartment though, ring my doorbell, and punch me as soon as I open the door, just like the last time. She's right. I'm the kind of person who brings nothing to the table. She's known all along that Zach should have stopped hanging out with me, warned him several times. Zach has often laughed her concerns off. I used to think it's because he enjoys the friendship as much as I do, despite a huge part of it going unspoken between us throughout the years. Now he's dead. Another one. Another person brutally taken from me. I thought I had more time. I thought he'd be safe. I acted too late. And in the deafening silence of my car, the only thing I'm able to do is close my eyes, rest my forehead against the cold surface of the steering wheel, and scream. Scream until my throat bleeds raw. Scream until my lungs burn. Scream until all that remains are the guilt and the tears. The sun hangs lower when I drive back to the pub and drag myself inside, still too unsure of how to break the news. Around this time, the patrons usually start to trickle into the main lounge until it reaches a peak around midnight. Today, however, it remains thin. But considering what day it isn't too worrisome for the kind of business G runs. He has always complained about the lack of a decent crowd on a weak start, although he doesn't really begrudge his customers for it. No one wants to start the week with a bad case of a hangover, after all, even him. Which makes the concerned look he gives me come off a bit too odd. With the kind of danger we're in, and after what happened to Zach, this swiftly puts me on edge, even before I can fully process and analyze the scene in front of me.
Something wrong, G?
G hums, but there's an undertone of annoyance in it despite his casual and open movements. And only after he finishes wiping a tumbler and carefully settles it face down on the table, he gives me an answer. The way he stares back at me honestly makes me squirm. It feels like I'm being stared down by my primary school teacher for sleeping in class again.
Nothing much. Monday's still a slow day for this place. But you, might want to check on your friends, kid. Looks like someone woke up on the wrong side of the bed while you were out.
Another question forms in my head, along with a small, confused frown. Though before a single syllable slips out of my mouth, he gestures his head on the far side of the pub's main lounge. In a corner, Rebecca paces in deep thought, with a scowl on her face. From the looks of it, it appears woke up on the wrong side of the bed is a complete understatement. In fact, I think she might hit the next person who tests her temper. Turns out sleep isn't just what some of us need. Even G appears to understand it. In spite of his efforts to look as unconcerned as possible, there's a tense set on his shoulders. A nervous edge lingers in his eyes as it occasionally flickers over Rebecca. He doesn't want to deal with this, especially at the start of another busy week. Neither do I. Rebecca's moods can be quite volatile. But the imploring gaze G directs at me leaves me with no other choice. It almost feels like he's guilting me into doing something about it. I hate that it's working. You know, I run this pub, kid. No fist fights, no cat fights, no people in sullen moods. Only good booze, bad puns, and off-key singing. Go fix it before it turns into something chaotic. It's probably not as easy if Rebecca's already in that state, but I give him a nod nevertheless.
Sorry about this, G.
He hums something under his breath for an answer and waves me off, turning away and returning to his work without another word. Even with the lack of a sizable crowd, he likes to keep busy. We're the same in that regard. Can't remain still, always has to stay moving, doing something, thinking, whatever keeps the brain at work. I leave it to him shortly after, part of me wants to thank him for all the trouble he has taken for people he barely even knew. Once this is over, I should probably find some way. In the meantime, I have this immediate problem to fix. Gotta go get it before it turns into a shitstorm. The area of the pub she's in is almost deserted. I'm willing to bet my entire life savings that the people are staying away only because of the brewing storm. Rebecca can have quite the mood when she's crossed. Whatever pissed her off this time, the way she's glaring at the wall already says everything. Before I can approach and intervene, though, Rebecca soon slumps on the chair. Gingerly, she reaches up to press the bridge of her nose and breathing out a ragged exhale. She only looks like this when stress has drained both her patience and energy, usually more than her rowdy students do, despite being no stranger to it. In the quietness of the room, I find myself drifting towards her and taking the empty seat next to her. Shortly, she leans her shoulders to mine like she used to all those years ago. Back when all that mattered to us were grades and what kind of trouble we'll get into next weekend. No curse, no letter, no ghosts. Just us and whenever our imagination will take us.
How are you holding up?
Barely, but I'll be fine. It's probably just this curse thing getting to me.
That bad, huh?
She makes a face, having been caught in her lie before allowing a small smile to replace it.
Excuse me? You're stuck in this nightmare too.
At least you're not shouting at anyone. That's something you don't see every day. I think you scared G for a bit there.
I just can't wait for this whole thing to be over. That way we can go back to how everything used to be.
You know that's impossible.
A truth. And we both falter into silence in the face of it. Her mouth opens briefly and I assume that she's about to argue her opinion about it. Maybe she says something contrary to it. But eventually, she simply nods, breathes out, and relaxes her rigid posture. A rare occurrence when she almost always has something on her mind. Seeing it, a smile spread across my face, knowing and perhaps a little pleased. It's only one thing to know of change. Watching it play out in front of me is an entirely different matter. In that one exchange, I caught a short, clear glimpse of what has shifted, of what's inevitable. So much has changed throughout the years. We will never be the same person we once were. And perhaps it's for the better. Rebecca notices enough, like she always did. Whatever she sees in my face startles her, causing her to jerk away.
Why are you staring at me like that?
Nothing. Don't mind me.
I know that look, Ashton Frey. That's definitely not a nothing. You wouldn't be wearing that expression if you didn't have something on your mind.
Really? It's nothing. It's just that when we were kids, you weren't really the kind of person who spoke her mind. Someone else always had to stand up for you. You've changed a lot, Becca.
What did you expect? It's been, what, 17, 18 years?
What I'm trying to say is, I think I like this version of you more.
A beat.
Except when you're mad, and you're yelling, and you're glaring daggers at everyone. You're pretty scary, you know.
Well, don't say that so casually. Also, if you're just going to complain, we might as well just end this talk right now.
See what I mean? Even Z-Man's scared of you. I'd bet my entire salary on it.
She swats at my arm, the gesture light and familiar. It causes us both to burst into peals of laughter afterwards. When was the last time we shared something like this? I can't remember. It's nice though. To have another conversation like this, to sit side by side enjoying each other's company. I'm not very fond of looking back to the past. Most of it means having to remember unpleasant things for me, but sometimes, coiled around the bad, there are good ones. And Rebecca's there for most of it. Things may change, but her friendship is one thing I will hold dear. We may meet new people throughout our lives, but that doesn't mean I will care for her any less. Which makes this whole business with the letter even more urgent. I still have one lead. So much is at stake. I can't let this curse take another one, if such a thing even makes sense when dealing with the supernatural. Tonight, by any means, I need to go back to the accursed place. Alone, because who knows what we might find there. Whether she agrees with this plan is inconsequential. With Zach and Isabella gone, her well-being is my top priority, and I'm not just about to drag her there with me. My apprehension must have been obvious in my face. In a sudden motion, Rebecca reaches out and taps my arm. Although she does so gently, it startles me. Nevertheless, it's enough to put a worried look on her. For a moment, she studies my face, eyes scrutinizing, searching. But before I can even avert my gaze, keep her from getting a read on me, she straightens, her worry abruptly fading into a look of disapproval.
You have a plan in mind, don't you?
It's a simple yes or no question. I can easily lie, yet her tone completely belies everything her words mean. I may as well tell her everything. When all is said and done, she's the one of the few people that I trust. However, every vein in my body knows she'll be the first one to disagree, put her foot down, and stop me. And once she does, who else will be left to fix this? Her? I do understand her concerns, but there are times when they're misplaced. This complication isn't what I need at the moment. But what am I supposed to say? What is she expecting to hear from me? What answer will satisfy her? She certainly appears like she's hoping for more than a yes or no for an answer I can't give at the moment. What else then? Offer a vague answer. I'm not keeping her in the dark.
I need to head off somewhere tonight.
A vague answer. It's all I can offer, and hopefully this will be enough. It's not an outright lie, but that though doesn't make me feel any less awful about this. It's worse when you know she's only asking because she's worried. Part of me wants to tell her about exactly what I'm planning tonight. What good will it do, though? I do intend to tell G before leaving tonight. He has to know if he's going to be keeping an eye on her for me. One person is already enough, however. Hell, simply letting someone in on the plan makes me iffy. Broadening that circle and revealing too much would just cause another pointless concern. But someone has to be aware, at least, of where I'm headed off to, in case things don't pan out. Expect the worst, even if I've only intended to do a quick survey of the place. In my own words, risky. Rebecca doesn't need to know the kind of danger I might be throwing myself in tonight. I don't even want to think what she'll say the second she finds out what I'm doing exactly as I told her not to. She should prioritize herself and her own safety first before others. But it's never that easy with her, isn't it?
Am I allowed to ask questions this time?
You're asking one right now, aren't you?
It's a serious question, Ashton. Yes or no?
You can, but I can't promise I'll answer them.
That's a nice way of saying no. You might as well just tell me to shut up.
You know I don't mean it like that.
Is there something I can do at least?
For an instant, I hesitate, pausing, fumbling for an answer. It's more difficult with her because all this time, she still looks at me as if I'm the same kid from years ago, who she depended on when she has yet to find herself who she turned to for answers despite my lack of them. It makes me all the more afraid to fuck up this time. And in case I do, she's the last person I want to be with me. Getting her into trouble, getting her killed is not how I want to repay the friendship she so generously offered me all these years. My friends are not supposed to be the ones taking the repercussions of my mistakes. Those are my own doing, of my own responsibility. A fear, a heavy weight on my shoulders they shouldn't be dragged into carrying. However, if there's one thing I can trust her with...
Stay safe.
And then a moment's pause. A hesitation while I try to choose the words to use, while I figure out how to break it to her. Because despite having never grown closer with Zach, unlike with Isabella, he is also a friend to her. He is a loss, all the same, for both of us. Because Zach won't be with us anymore. The words form and my throat. The words won't form and my throat closes up. But I don't need to look at her to know how she's taking the news. There's a sorrow in her, palpable enough as soon as the meaning of what I said sinks in. A pain I can't even hope to understand, one that we'll both deal with in our own ways. In the end, I can only urge her to carry on.
You're good with that kind of stuff.
You don't need to remind me. I can take care of myself well enough.
A grimace is on her face, but I know she'll do it, even without me asking her for it. She cares, more than anyone, more than what her fiery temper expresses. And it eases something in me. Sure enough, after a stretch of silence, she eventually nods. She does not entirely agree with this. It's in the distant look on her face, but she's willing to trust me on this. For now, that's enough. Either way, it's best that we simply leave things here for now. There's already an understanding, albeit something we both don't agree with. No need to push it further. With a light, reassuring squeeze on her shoulder, I stand up. At the same time, footsteps shuffle from the pub's entrance and a cheerful chatter suddenly fills the room as a group of people enters. It's all the distraction I need. Muttering an excuse and flashing Rebecca a quick smile, I beat a hasty exit out of the main lounge and leave her on her own, despite the troubled look she shoots me. Before Rebecca can say what's on her mind, before the last frustrated glare she directs me forces me to change my mind. It's another lasting image that firmly etches itself in my memory, one that spurs the coincidence, among other things. I just hope I won't regret what I've chosen for myself tonight. Alright, we are going to end the episode off here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, or don't. I don't give a shit. And I'll see you all in the next one. And, goodbye everyone.